Like so many of us, 2020 literally pulled the rug out from under my feet, and when all was said and done, my life was a hot mess. And now here I am at 40-something, healing from depression and anxiety, doing my best to live my best hot mess life, all while making some magic and miracles along the way, using the same sacred feminine principles that I've been preaching for so long. And now I get to share all of that with you. My name is Maria, aka the Femme Coach, and you're listening to the Femcast podcast, the podcast for wild, sassy, and spiritual women who are ready to tap into their sacred feminine superpowers to live their best hot mess life. This podcast is listener discretion advised for mature content and coarse language. Hey you guys, what is up, and welcome back to the Femcast. I'm actually still sitting in the same spot that I was sitting in the last episode. I have nothing to do because I'm waiting for my furniture arrival, and I'm literally sitting in an empty room right now and on the floor. Still with the same coffee and notebook. And I figured, you know what? Like, these are some things that I kind of wanted to talk about for a while, so I might as well just get them all out now while I'm sitting here. Make good use of my time. Because actually, it's funny. Like, the minute you have nothing to do and you're just kind of sitting in an empty room with nothing to distract you, it's amazing how much inspiration comes flooding through, right? So for those of you who are struggling with getting inspired or tapping into your creative flow, sit and do nothing for a little while. Trust me, works like a charm. And just allow yourself to do nothing and enjoy doing nothing. That I think is the key. But anyway, without further ado, here's another episode that I kind of wanted to share with you guys for a while. And that is my favorite go-to healing modalities when, when you're going through a difficult time of healing and transformation, right? I've never been a subscriber of the belief that there's only one healing modality that works for everyone out there. I don't think that even for one person, there's one real healing modality that will do it all for you. I believe that, we kind of go through different healing modalities for different reasons, and they accomplish different things. And I think when you start to look at this from a space of, really being present with what you're needing in that moment and allowing yourself to have that and give that to yourself, I think is a really powerful way to approach your healing journey. There's just, I've even when I did my practice, initially, it was a lot of one-off sessions and then like customized packages. And then everyone's telling you, no, you need to do package. It needs to be 6 months. You're not giving your clients a transformation the transformation that they need. You need to create the container. Oh my God, I hate that word, container. It bugs me. Because here's the thing. Container to me means I'm boxed into this experience. And I can't just address what's coming up for me in that moment and what I think would best serve me in that moment. It's almost like you're giving your power away to something, I think, don't get me wrong, I think healing is great. I think that, I think that there's so many powerful and talented healers and coaches out there. But I will say, really think about who you work with. Really be careful about who you select to work with. Make sure that, on a basic level that you resonate with them and their story. And there are certain few red flags that I would say to look out for. And for me, one of them, tying me into a package is one of them, because I kind of feel like, you can always work with multiple people in multiple different packages, but do you really want to do that? For me, it's always about, I'm going to book sessions with you until I feel I no longer need sessions with you. End of conversation, right? So when I work with people with that intention, right? And sometimes I will work with multiple people because I feel like I need different things at different times. And that's just how I've done my healing. A lot of times I've managed my own healing. Now, mind you, okay, fine. I've done healing work on others. So I'm not against doing healing work on myself, but, there are times when I really do need to go to other people because I don't have the detachment that I need to have in order to really be able to see myself through the process and hold space for myself, right? Oftentimes, when it gets really intense, we get caught up in the story, and that's not going to serve us if we're in the story and trying to heal ourselves. It never really works, because then it's like, but I love the story. The story feels good. The story's comfy. This is the story I know really well, so I'm just going to sit here for a little while longer. No. So anyway, I'm a firm believer in using multiple healing modalities depending on where you are, from day to day, from week to week, from month to month. I don't think there's a be all end all. I believe in, trusting your intuition and trusting what you're being called to bring into your healing repertoire. I hate that word too. Oh my God, I hate a lot of words. Okay. Well, I'm feeling really silly today. Maybe it's that extra cup of coffee. Anyway, I don't know. But of all the healing modalities that I would say that have been my go-to, there are 5. And one is obviously, my passion and my energy, and where my focus has always been when I work with people, and that is on regression work. Yes, I do energy healing, and intuitive, guidance, right, when I'm working with someone. But my big thing for me has always been in the regression work. And oftentimes it's a childhood regression that comes up. So we go back into old memories and really start to rework and reframe the beliefs that we create as children. Because oftentimes, we experience things as children, we decide or come to the conclusion that it means certain things about ourselves. So, we can experience sometimes some very traumatic things. Sometimes it can be the simplest things, right? And we decide that it makes us mean that when it happens, it meant that, if this is happening, then this must mean that I'm not worthy of love, or that I'm not good enough, or my parents don't love me, or nobody listens to me, nobody cares about me. I'm kind of like grow old by myself and die kind of stories, right? We really do this as children. And sometimes it can be like the most insignificant things that make us think that. And I don't want to scare anybody who's raising children right now. Please don't get paranoid. If there's anything I can tell you, it's that all parents screw it up at some point or another. So don't worry. You're not alone. And children are pretty resilient. But we do make up stories. And sometimes we even bring stories in and, like I always say, take it with a grain of salt. I've made it very clear and abundantly clear in all my social media outlets that I do very much believe in past lives. So if you don't believe in that, great. If you do, I do believe that we bring in trauma and stories from our past lives. I've experienced it firsthand. And and it's not something that I think you need to go looking for. I think if there's healing for you in a past life, the situations and opportunities to do that will present themselves to you in this life. And if there's a clue for you that needs to be brought to your awareness from a past life in order to help you do that, then that clue will be brought to your awareness. You really don't need to do much. Honestly, I don't know. I think these things sort of find you when you need them. I really do believe that. I think that healing, the experience of healing is kind of like this superpower brain that it knows what you need when you need it, and it's going to help you find it. And you just need to be open to it. That's all you need to do. You need to set the intention that you're going to go on this healing journey, and then you need to be open to whatever comes your way. And whatever you need will come to you. And I truly, truly, truly believe that. So for me, my journey has been a lot of regression work, going back into old childhood memories, reframing the beliefs that were created as child, doing a lot of inner child work. So where the inner child is still wounded and still holding on to those old pains and woundings and beliefs. I literally parent my inner child. I talk to them. I write letters to them. I reassure them. And I say to them what I would have wanted to hear back in those moments when the trauma first took place. And it really is a powerful way to do self-healing work. And I think probably it would be worth it to kind of put that process out there on another podcast. So stay tuned for that. Maybe that's another one I'll do today. I don't know. We'll see. I've got another couple of hours, I think, before my delivery window expires. Okay. So, that's always been my go-to. But like I said, last year got really intense. And I was way too caught up in my story. I was doing a lot of my own shadow work. I was caught in a real funk. I was struggling with depression and anxiety, which is something that, I've always sort of struggled with depression and anxiety, but it had, number one, I hadn't experienced it in a very long time. And number two, it certainly was probably one of the stronger bouts of depression and anxiety that I ever had. So I knew I needed help. And, with everything going on with, the failing business, my parents' health declining, having to let go of the apartment, two car accidents that I got into, one of which caused major post-traumatic stress for me. I knew I needed help. I knew I did. And, and I think that first lockdown, where many of us had no other choice but to just face our shadow because there really wasn't anything else to do but look at your shadow. It became blatantly obvious to me that I needed to go outside sources for some healing work. Now, I do believe that even when we go to outside sources for healing work, I believe that this healing comes from the universe, so we're always supported in that, and it just sends us the people who can best facilitate it. And these are the ones who I went to as my facilitators for my healing. Okay, so number one, good old-fashioned therapy. Yes, I did some good old-fashioned therapy with a beautiful woman from the UK. Her name is Michelle Moore. I think she has a website. I will link it down below. And for everybody that I mentioned to you guys today, I will link their information down below where I have it. If I don't have it, then just email me at maria@thefemcoach.com and I'll see if I can connect you to them. Michelle Moore is such a radiant human being. Like, I can't say enough nice things about her. And the reason why I went to her is because, I knew I needed therapy, like good old fashioned therapy. But what I loved about Michelle is that she's not only a registered therapist, but she's also a very spiritual therapist. So I knew that it wasn't going to get, I'm always very skeptical when it comes to therapy because I find therapy can sometimes be very, very, very practical and can sometimes, I don't want to say negate a lot of my spiritual beliefs, but it can challenge them, right? And I need to have a balance of both. To me, balancing the medical and the clinical with the spiritual is a very important thing for me. I believe that everything in this world will function much more in a much more healthy way. Every living thing will function in a much more healthy way when we start to marry science and spirituality. I personally believe that. So it was very important for me when it came time to look for a therapist that I find someone who was also very spiritual and could understand from a spiritual point of view what I was going through, which was really nothing more than another phase of my own spiritual evolutionary process, right? I was going through another dark night of the soul, which if you listen to the podcast on the 11 stages of spiritual awakening, I was in the void. I was in the shadow. And it was a very, very, very difficult time. And I was moving through some very heavy energies and very heavy beliefs and wounding and old wounds and things. So working with Michelle it felt like somebody helping to carry the load with me. It felt like I was carrying a very heavy emotional and energetic load. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like somebody was there to carry it with me. And she has this way of being able to see, when you start to talk to her and you start to tell her what you're experiencing, number one, she's just the most soothing human. And number two, she can really start to see where the patterns are and where the distortion is and how you're seeing things, right? And she can really help you really correct those distortions and really start to take new actions and do things in a different way that will help you to break old patterns. And that is really Michelle's genius, and the beautiful thing is that you always feel so supported. And so, working with her on that level really helped me to face some old, ugly fears and beliefs that I held about myself that I really hadn't been willing to look at, and that this whole period had kind of brought to the surface. I was able to see a lot of my patterns, and it's funny because I never saw myself as somebody who had a pattern of abusive relationships, but it finally became evidently clear that this was a pattern for me. I had a pattern of attracting, or at least being in, very emotionally abusive relationships, usually with, I guess you could say, I mean, I hate to throw the word narcissist out there, but more covert narcissism, really, like where it's like, it's very hard to detect. They always come off so kind and loving in the beginning, and then it's like they flip a switch on you, right? And it wasn't until I started working with Michelle that I started to see this pattern and where I was protecting them and making excuses for them. And I knew I was kind of doing this, and I could remember back to old relationships where I was like, I knew I wasn't being honest with other people, but I didn't know what I was hiding either. It was like, I'm going to say something. I would say something about the other person that was untrue, right? So let's say, for example, they would say, oh, how so-and-so. I'd be, oh, they're great. They would have loved to have come out today, but they're working. But they would have loved to be here. And they feel bad that they missed out. And in my head, I'm going, that's not true. They didn't want to be here. Yeah, they're working, but they could have taken the time off, but they purposely didn't want to be here because they didn't like this person, and they actually don't even like me hanging out with this person. And it was just a challenge to get over here. So, and it was like, it was so subtle because, I think there is a stigma attached to what an abusive relationship is supposed to look like. And we see it in movies, there's this like monster who's mean and demeaning and, treats you horribly and physically and verbally abuses you. And, he's just this mean person to be around, and you're afraid to be around him, and you're constantly and walking on eggshells around them. And that is true. And that does happen. I'm not by any means saying that that is not true. That absolutely happens. And I've worked with beautiful, strong, courageous women who have been in situations like that and worse. And let me tell you, like, these are real stories. But there's also another story. There's another story of a pattern of abusive people who are kind, who are loving, who make you feel like they could never love anybody more than they love you. But there's this dark, twisted side to them that you can't make sense of, where they emotionally detach, where they abandon you, where they reject you, where they put you down, where they emotionally manipulate, they use your emotions against you to manipulate you, to get you to do what it is they want. And it is so hard to really grasp that that is actually an abusive pattern. It took me years. I didn't realize that I was in these abusive relationships until I finally started to have these conversations with Michelle, where we started to piece together a lot of my past relationships and what they look like and how I felt in them. And, how I always felt I was, trying to earn my way through the relationship or prove my worthiness or my love or my affection, and always, kind of end up with the short end of the stick. And I didn't know what was happening until I finally, put the pieces together with her, that I was stuck in this people-pleasing pattern, which, by the way, if you've ever thought that you were a people pleaser, please take a look at your relationships, and where it was bringing out a very codependent, narcissistic dynamic in a lot of my relationships. Sometimes would be very subtle, but it was always there. So it finally came to the surface. I finally understood it. We finally started to understand where it came from. And I was finally started to put these patterns to bed and move away from these patterns of creating these emotionally imbalanced, toxic relationships, right? So thank you, Michelle, for that. I love you. And how I could have started applying to those patterns, those new patterns, to all my relationships, work, family, friends, everything, right? And, where did they really start, and how did I learn them, right? We started to look at all of that, and suddenly everything started to make sense. So the work that I did with Michelle was truly transformational for that reason. After Michelle, and Michelle is still a very huge part of my life, and I still go to her from time to time. But after Michelle, I started working with tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. Now, when I initially found the tapping, I found it through YouTube. There's, you can find various tutorial videos on how to tap and different things to tap on and different limiting beliefs to tap on. And I think I started following several people, but I think the one that really resonated for me was this one woman by the name of I think it's Jen Patridge or Jennifer Patridge. Partridge. I'd have to look that up and put it in the links, but I will link that below on the blog. But through her and her tapping community, I connected with another amazing woman. This one is out of LA. She actually knows Jen Partridge really well. Is Jenna Grayson. So she is one of her facilitators, and she's usually in the community with Jen Partridge. Anyway, I connected with her through the community. We did some sessions together, and working with her was also, again, truly transformational experience. I've never experienced tapping quite like that, because tapping is usually like you tap on a negative belief and you keep tapping on it, and then you start to tap on the opposite belief. This was so different. The way, I guess, Jennifer Patridge teaches it, and then Jenna Grayson actually facilitates, it goes so much deeper than that. I was able to go into some really, really, really old wounds and traumas, and some things that I hadn't actually remembered for a very long time started to come through these sessions, and details that I wasn't able to pinpoint. And there was a lot of stuff coming out, and I remember being in sessions with her, and sometimes shaking, like full body shakes at the emotions that were coming out and things that were trapped that were still holding resonance inside of me, right? And releasing those for me was just so powerful and freeing, like really, really, truly emotional freedom technique, right? It was so freeing, and it was so, these were really difficult emotions, really difficult experiences that I was almost felt like I was reliving again and again, which is obviously what I was putting my clients through, and I never realized it. But the beautiful thing that I can say about what I do for my clients when I would do one-on-one sessions, and what Jenna was able to do for me, is really just being able to hold the safe space. Jenna is great at being able to just hold a safe space for me, to allow me to be in all these feelings, to look at my shadow straight in the eye, and just be able to just allow it to just move through me and be transformed and transmuted into something beautiful and magical. And I don't think that I would have experienced the healing that I experienced had it not been for Jenna taking me so deep into some of this trauma work that she was able to take me through. So Jenna, if you're listening, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Again, if I can, I've already asked everyone for their permission to, if I can post their information. So if I have their information, I will post it below. Otherwise, get in touch with me and I will connect you. Maria@thefemcoach.com. Number 3, human design. Who knew? Honestly, I thought human design, I'm like, it's just another kind of astrology. I don't even know my time of birth. What could it possibly tell me? And I don't know my time of birth. Apparently that was left off my birth certificate. I don't know why, but whatever. Human design has been life-changing. And the person who's introduced me to human design and who I've studied through is Taylor Eaton. She is amazing. She is in the US. I believe she's based somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. I want to say Portland, perhaps, or Washington area, somewhere around there. I don't know my US geography all that well, sorry. But I know she's up somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. And she's always posting the most fabulous posts of her hikes. So anyway, me and her had connected through some other Facebook group, and her human design focuses more on wealth. So how to use your human design to call in more wealth. which is why I started to work with her. But really, I mean, when you start to play with human design, you realize that it applies to so many things beyond wealth. That's just her specialty. And believe me, she is great at it. And I love working with her, and I'm still on one of her programs right now. It's actually just wrapping up at the end of the month. The end of next month. And working with her has just been amazing. Like, it's been so life-changing, because I think the biggest thing that I've experienced with human design, and, if any of you have had human design readings or anything done, I mean, feel free to pop in. But the real cool thing about it is that I always felt like I'm not going to say designed, because, I always felt like I was kind of inclined to do certain things, to behave a certain way, to take certain actions, to take actions in a specific way. And it's always been in a way that's been kind of frowned upon, that is usually considered, irresponsible. We're kind of, excuse me, I'm getting a hiccup as I'm doing this, so truth bubble there. And you're always forcing yourself to kind of mold and shape and do things the way society tells you things should be done. Well, apparently, everything that I had been ignoring is actually the way I've been designed to do things, and how to flow through life, and how I tap into that universal flow of like abundance and wealth and all of it, right? And just ease and purpose and grace, and just all these beautiful magical things start to happen when you just start to go with your own universal flow, and how that's supposed to look for you, right? Because we're all designed very differently, and this is what I've learned working with Taylor. So a lot of the things that I had been resisting or trying to like literally fight against is really the way I was meant to do things. And it was actually serving me in a powerful way. I just needed to surrender to it, and trust it, and trust that it would work. And trust that even though everything in the world was telling me that it was irresponsible and that it wasn't the smart way to do things, I just needed to just let that go, and just trust that this is my human design. This is how I'm designed to make these decisions, to take these actions, to live life, and to create the life that I want to create. This is how it's meant to look for me, right? In terms of how I do it, not necessarily the way life should look, where I think sometimes we get caught in the trap of, letting other things tell us how life should look for us, like things outside of ourselves. That's, I think, the dangerous trap we get into. But I think the beauty of what I've learned through Taylor and through human design is that it can look any way you want it to look. It's just how you get there that you can kind of tweak and play with your strengths, right? And where you're designed to move more easily, and how you're designed to move more easily, versus where you sometimes come up against some resistance, and how to deal with it, right? So I think that's been the real life-changing thing, is that it finally gave me permission to finally be who I kind of thought I was all along, and I was trying to beat it out of myself, apparently, because I was always told that thinking, flying by the seat of your pants and doing what brings you joy and lights you up is completely irresponsible. Well, apparently I'm designed that way. So, having said that, it's been a very liberating experience getting on this human design train with Taylor. And I can never say enough amazing things about her. And she's really helped me to see things differently and see myself differently. And things that I used to think of as being bad, or, things I needed to change, I don't see it that way anymore. And I think that for me has been, like I said, truly liberating, and has opened so many doors for me. All sorts of doors. We're not just talking about, I'm talking about all kinds of doors have opened for me as a result of leaning more and more each and every day into my own human design, and what that really looks and feels like for me, and really trusting that it gets to work, and trusting that if I do that, it'll all work out, right? One way or another. So thank you, Taylor. Could not have done this without you. I think last month I told her that this month, I said last month I said to her, next month we're going to be celebrating that I'm going to be in my new place. And now here I am recording this podcast and giving her kudos. So thank you, Taylor. Anyway, last but not least, the emotion code. I cannot say enough amazing things about the emotion code. And as a matter of fact, I've kind of married the emotion code and human design to work together in a very powerful way. And I'll see where that kind of ends up. But the emotion code I love so much because it's such an easy way to move through a lot of old gunk. So, like I said, I've done a lot of work this last 2 years, right? Last year, 2 years. Um, Therapy, tapping, leaning into design. And then, after all of this releasing, there's still always residual emotions that are trapped in the body, right? They get trapped in the body, emotional body, spiritual body, physical body, mental body. All sorts of stuff gets trapped in there. And, sometimes you just need a nice, easy way to start releasing some of that old baggage you've been carrying around, right? And like I said, I did a lot of the heavy lifting in the beginning of the year. So maybe that assisted in this process. I don't know. I don't know that you can do one or the other. Maybe it's a combination of the two. Maybe there is a one size fits all solution in one of these 4 for you, or 5, right? Modalities. I totally lost count of where I was. So the one was the shadow work, right? So going back and doing the regression work, which is something that I've always done with my clients and I've always done for myself. The second one was therapy. The third one was tapping. The fourth was human design. And the fifth is now the emotion code. So the emotion code is just a really beautiful, energetic way of clearing through a lot of old emotions that you're holding on to, emotions that you experienced, that others experienced around you, and you compounded them together with other emotions, or emotions that were inherited from your ancestral lines that are being cleared simultaneously in all directions for all generations in your lineage. Like, it's just such a powerful tool. And I've noticed the healing within myself and even within my family. I even got, oh my God, how Western am I? I even got a session for my dog who was suffering from severe anxiety. And, I cannot say enough about the simplicity and the beauty of this modality, because instead of, doing the heavy lifting and the deep inner work of, the shadow work and the regression and even the tapping, this came as such a beautiful clearing to follow, right? And don't get me wrong, there's times where it still gets very intense, and I've noticed that whenever I do a session a few days later, I come into some intensity as I start to process the healing session that I did the previous few days. It starts to get really uncomfortable, and a lot of lessons will come up, and a lot of old things will get triggered and brought up so that they can literally just be let go and release. And it really is that simple of a process, and it's such a beautiful process. And so initially I got the emotion code book, and I started doing the emotion code on myself. And then I joined the group and found some great interactions through there. And then through the group, I actually got in contact with somebody who was training to become a facilitator. So her name is Sarah Rossi Tusi. She does not have a website yet, so I only contact her through email at this point. But once her website is up and running, I will absolutely include it in the show notes in the podcast. So keep an eye out for that. But she has done this just beautiful and miraculous work. And what I really love about working with Sarah is that she always says, like, I'm not the healer, and I think sometimes when we get into this realm of, this industry, we forget we're not the coach. Like, we're not the source of the intuition. We're not the source of the healing. We're just the facilitator, right? And so when Sarah says that to me, I'm like, yeah, you're right. You are just the facilitator. What she's doing is she's channeling source. She's channeling universal energy. She's channeling God, whatever resonates for you, and is as being the conduit for the healing, right? But the healing comes from a much higher power. We're just being the conduits, right? And I love that she says that, because it rings so true for me. And it is precisely the fact that she is so humble, and loving, that makes her such a beautiful soul to work with. And I have been able to release so many old emotions working with her, and not only release old emotions, but really install in some really beautiful and uplifting beliefs to replace them, right? And bring in beautiful energies and beautiful feelings to experience, and have opened myself up so much more than I ever thought was possible to experience these feel-good feelings, right? And I'm so beyond grateful to her. Like she is just such a beautiful healing soul, and just having her hold space for you is just such a magical experience. All these women that I've mentioned here today, are just such beautiful, magical, and powerful women, and I'm just honored and blessed to have them in my life to do this work with, and they've been really life-changing for me. And I don't think that I could have gotten through this last year had it not been for them. I mean, ultimately, like I said, the healing comes from source, and I am grateful to receive that healing each and every day. But these beautiful women have been the facilitators and the conduits of that healing for the last 2 years of my life. And I really don't think I would have made it through without their support through all this. There were many, many, many times where I just could not, I just felt like I can't go on anymore. I just can't, I'm too tired. I can't do this anymore. Like I'm just exhausted. And thankfully, I see these beautiful women as angels that were kind of sent to me to work with, to help me, who could bring a message that maybe I wasn't hearing on my own. And maybe they were just the facilitator to help bring that message home to me. So these modalities, these 5 modalities of healing that have changed my life, I will forever be grateful for. Whether or not I ever start to, I ever pick up my healing practice again, I'm not sure. And if I do, I can guarantee you that some of this will be included in it, because it's been so transformational for me that I feel I would feel like an ass if I didn't share it with the rest of the world, Now, in what capacity and what that looks like, I don't know, but we'll see. But in the meantime, if there's any areas that you think that would resonate for you, if there's any of these women that you think is what you're needing right now, let me know, and I will connect you, or check the bottom of the show notes and see if there's a link there. If I have to have a website, I would have included a link. So rest assured. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 healing modalities, and what has really, really helped me to move through a very healing and transformational time in a very powerful way. So I hope this brings you something that you needed to hear today. I hope this helps you in some way. If it does, let me know in the comments below. Send me an email at maria@thefemcoach.com. Let me know how it works out for you. Let me know what you decide to do, and let me know what your experience is. And maybe you have another healing modality that you'd like to share. Let us know in the comments. That is all for now. Until next time, get the support that you need to live your best hot mess life, and let it be okay. It is totally okay to ask for help. There is nothing more powerful to do. There's no more powerful act of self-love than to admit that you need some help and support. So thank you for doing that for yourself. And for giving other women permission to do the same, because it is a really powerful thing when we all give ourselves that permission to do that. Okay? That's it. Until next time, massive love. You've been listening to the Femcast podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow and share. And don't forget to check out my website at www.thefemcoach.com for more resources and tools to help you harness your sacred feminine superpowers to create your best hot mess life. Until next time, massive love.